it's actually an interesting little program. You can basically just record little windows and boxes, etc. So I'm recording this. I will put this up online. You'll have access to it, just like all the lectures. So like I said today, this week, we're going to look at citations. We're going to focus on MLA and APA style. I will explain a little bit about those, how they work. This will help you avoid plagiarism, okay? Because I don't tolerate plagiarism in your papers, so if you plagiarize, you'll fail that assignment, okay? No ifs, ands, or buts. I think I asked the question the other day, does anybody not know what plagiarism is?
Are you asking again?
Yeah, just to make sure, just as a kind of disclaimer. So everybody knows what plagiarism is, so therefore you all know it's wrong. Okay? You know that you shouldn't be copying and pasting other people's words and presenting them as your own. That's bad. So here, I just want to go through some documents with you. These are all available right now on Moodle, because next week you're going to have a very brief assignment due. I'll explain this here. It'll be this one, the MLA APA assignment. Very easy, very quick, okay, once you know what you're doing. Now, here, I want to go into this research meta-commentary. Okay, once again, it's a kind of commentary that explains itself. I don't know if we actually, did we go through the essay format together? Okay. So if you have a question about how the essay should be formatted, look there. Meta-commentary. So, this commentary explains itself. For those of you who just came in, please remind me after class to log you in. All right, I'm just going to read through this with you. I think, this is an older version of this text. I have updated it subsequently. I only have this older version. There are a couple typos in here, so I apologize. Boo-hoo-hoo, a typo. So this is a meta-commentary on citation research and works cited issues. The next 4 pages, this is a 4-page document. The next 4 pages will seek to clarify issues about citations, research, quotes, paraphrases, and other related issues. Is this legible? You want me to make it larger? Okay, let me, how would I do that? Oh.
All
right.
Maximize the window.
A little better?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't want to ruin anybody's eyesight. The process of citing and creating the works cited list, or the reference list, can be confusing notions when starting out in academic styles of writing. I know this firsthand, as I've been exactly where you are when I was a confused and bewildered freshman too many years ago to count. Literally, in my class that's supposed to be like this one, okay, Intro to Academic Writing, they didn't even bother to explain to us how to cite things. So I would invent, every paper I wrote, I invented citation styles. I had no idea what I was doing. And one day, one of my professors got sick of it, and he handed me a book, and he said, learn this book. And I said, okay, and I was like, oh, there's a citation guide. That's how you're supposed to do it, okay? So this is actually a little confusing at first, I understand, if you've never done it. But once you learn where to look and how to do this, the citation list is actually the easiest part of the paper. The research is hard. The research takes time to do, okay? But we'll look today at how this functions, okay? Now, a citation is basically any reference to another author's books, articles, works, ideas, or to information outside the realm of knowledge that any relatively intelligent person ought to possess. Okay? To explain this idea, I'll be using examples from Plato and references to the naturalized American inventor Nikola Tesla. Now, we'll talk about common knowledge toward the end of this, because what's common knowledge for you is not common knowledge for me, and vice versa, okay? So it is contextual, right? It is contextual. So I start this off with a citation, okay? In Plato's Apology, Socrates, speaking in his trial, says, quote, "It is not difficult to avoid death, gentlemen. It is much more difficult to avoid wickedness, for it runs faster than death." End quote, 34. Now, I've just made a direct quote. This is a kind of citation. Now, this is where it actually gets a little tricky, and for some reason I saw this in a lot of papers last semester, and I couldn't figure it out at first. People were quoting things like this. Blah, 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 blah. So they were quoting things like this at the opening of their paper, okay? So just like, quote, blah, 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 and then they would have a dash and then the author, okay? And that's not how you cite, okay? But what I realized was people were just going to citation pages, okay, and just copying and pasting their final change. Confusion. Oh, Plato? Is that how you saw it when you were reading Plato? Just blah, blah, blah. Okay. A little more accurate. So this is not how you cite things. This is actually how you would cite something in an epigraph at the beginning of a book. It would actually look like this. Okay. I want to point this out because I saw this very often last semester. So you would only use a quote like that if you were doing something like this. If you were setting the quote off from the rest of the text as a kind of lead-in quote before the hook. Okay? So this is not a hook. So don't cite things like this. Okay? So notice here, okay, I've identified the author, the work, okay, in which it's found. I've given a little bit of context and provided the page number on which the quote can be found. Okay? So this is how you open up any quote. Okay? Plato says, blah, 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 blah. Socrates says, blah, 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 blah. Aristotle says, blah, 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 blah. Okay? So that is how you introduce every single quote. Okay? Every quote. Yes?
You said in the hook, but you said on the hook would be nice to use a quote.
Yes.
So we would use the hook and then quote cite the quote at the end of our in the
No, here's basically how it works. In the text of your paper, all you have to do is give the reader just enough context and information so that they can reasonably find which quote or which book you're referring to. Okay. So his question is that, do we have to cite this at the end of the paper? Yes, absolutely. Okay, I'll show you this here in a minute. But always, never forget to put the author's name. Okay, author's name, because if I don't have the author's name, I don't know who made that quote. Okay, so always the author. There are several different ways to do this, and this will outline, okay, the various ways to do it. But now, here, my question is going to come up to my question here in the paper will answer your question, okay? So, where can I find this quote? Let's say you read that quote and you're like, oh my goodness, I really want to go read that book. That sounds amazing, okay? What you would have to do is go to the end of the paper to the works cited. Now, this is an MLA format. There are two different formats we'll be working with this semester. MLA and APA. I'll talk a little bit about these here, okay? But here you notice, this is my work cited. This is the list of books and authors referred to in my paper, okay? So I go here, Plato, that's the author. So I go here, I find Plato, ooh, the Apology. Okay, I can find that in the collected works of Plato, okay? Edited by John Cooper, published in the city of Indianapolis by Hackett, okay, in 1997. Now, this is the old version. In the new version of MLA, they've changed it a bit. I'll show you where to find all this online. Don't worry. So this is how it would look in modern MLA. That's an older version, okay? So notice here, just a couple little distinctions for you. It always goes in this order, okay? Author, title of the work, okay? In this case, there's a smaller selection out of the collected works, and then the editor or translator, as listed in the book, publisher, date. That's all you need. And that way, then, I read that quote in your text. I know that if I go here on page 37, I will find that quote. Okay? That's all you need to do. Just identify the page number that it's on. You don't have to identify anything else. You know, line 34, 4 words in, no, it's just name the page, okay? Now, just a little quick note on this. The apology is in quotes. This title is italicized, okay? So the collected works of Plato is italicized. This is a small distinction, but it's kind of important. I just want to explain how this is working. When you have a smaller work, okay, so the apology is one dialogue of many, collected in this big book. It's about that thick, okay? So the smaller works, like a poem, a song, a drawing, a short story, an essay, they get quotes put around them to indicate that it's a shorter work. I thought a jet was flying over. So that indicates it's a smaller work. When it's italicized, that tells us it's the title of a book, like an album, a painting, okay? Those are going to be italicized, okay? Because that indicates to the reader, it's a larger work, okay? Now, if you make a mistake in your papers on this, I don't care, okay? That's something you will learn, okay, going forward. The thing I really want you to avoid, okay, is to not forget to put your sources that you're referencing in the text in the works cited or reference list. That is plagiarism, okay? So if I came down here, if I said, ooh, that's a really cool quote, I really want to read that, I can't wait to see where they got that quote. And if I come down here, okay, in your works cited list and I don't see Plato, the apology, plagiarism. If you've quoted him in the text and don't cite the book down here, that's plagiarism. Usually it's accidental. Okay? Usually it's accidental. Like I said, with an accidental plagiarism, I will let you know to fix it. Okay? But yes.
So what if you cite like multiple references to the same author? Like let's say for instance, Plato said, I like all, and he said, I like cats. Right? How would you like go about it? Let's say they are both not from like a graded collection. Let's say they're from like a singular piece of work.
Yep.
How would you cite those thoughts from the same person?
Well, that's a good question, and actually, this is how you do it. You'll see this. You're anticipating some of the things that are going to come up in the document here. What you do in MLA is this. These 3 dashes indicate same author. So in this text, I actually reference Plato twice. I refer to 2 different documents. Okay. So we've got Plato twice, and we have Plato, and then these 3 dashes indicate they must mean that's another work from Plato. Okay, so that's how you do it. And APA works a little bit differently, and I'll show you how that works here in a moment. But for the most part, if you learn MLA, you can do APA. If you learn APA, you can do MLA. It depends on your majors. Okay. So do I have any humanities majors in here? What about science? I guess journalism is sort of right on the edge of that. Okay. But if you're in the humanities, I want you to focus on MLA. If you're in the social sciences, the hard sciences, I want you to focus on APA. Okay, I'll show you the difference between them here in a little bit. So that way you don't have to learn 2 citation styles. That's pointless. Okay? Because of the social sciences and the sciences, they usually use APA. It's from the American Psychiatric Association. In the humanities, they tend to use MLA. Okay? There's a lot of different citation styles. We'll get into those as we go through. So to answer your question, that's how you would do this. Okay? So, going back up here. Okay, blah, 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 blah. Note that the whole list of authors and references is in alphabetical order, and that all foreign words and phrases have been translated. This was much more important when I was teaching in Korea, because a lot of my Korean students would cite things from Korean authors. Okay? But you always have to translate in the works cited list into English so you know, right, what order to put them in. Right? So if you're trying to make a works cited list, Orwell, George. So notice here we've got Korean, we've got English, and we've got Greek. Okay, we can't, because they're not translated into the same language. We don't even know where to put those references in relationship to one another. Okay. And George Orwell, and then that's Plato. Okay? So you have to translate it into English to know where to put them. Okay. So, yes, list of authors, references, alphabetical order, foreign words, and phrases translated. Okay? Now, though the Republic was written in Greek by Plato, so the original word is politeia and Platon, I have to translate the words into English in the text and the works cited. Why? Because my readers might not understand the original language. Okay? It's just that simple. Now, here I'm going back into meta commentary. On page 35, he then says, ironically, quote, "To you, as being my friends, I want to show the meaning of what had occurred," end quote. Now notice here, I have made another direct quote. I have followed all the rules, okay? I have mentioned the page number and the text of my writing, cluing the reader where she can find the quote. I don't mention the author. Why not?
You already mentioned it before.
Yes, I've already mentioned Plato's name, so that when I refer to he, okay, the reader will know that it must be referring to that author and to that text. Okay? So he, Plato, apology, and I can go to page 35 and I can find that quote. Okay? This is just how it works. If you switch authors, okay, you have to let the reader know, I'm not talking about Plato anymore. Okay? So common sense, in terms of your citations, common sense will take you a long way. Okay?
It'd be the same thing for paragraphs too, right?
Pardon?
It would be the same thing for paragraphs too, right?
Yes. If you jump to a new paragraph, okay, and you're still referring to he, it should refer to Plato. The kind of general rule, though, is that even if you're talking about Plato and you switch to a new paragraph, you usually want to at least reference Plato again. Just use his name again. Okay? It's not. If you're in doubt, just oversight. Okay? Because in the context of paragraph, authorship is understood in context. A little common sense goes very far. Now, what about a summary or a paraphrase of an idea? Okay. Remember we talked about summaries the other day in relationship to was it Titanic? I think.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So in that sense, summaries are always kind of a type of interpretation. So a paraphrase is basically a kind of shorter summary. So a summary, like for example, if I said summarize the Titanic, the movie Titanic, right? You would have to talk very broadly about that in order to summarize. If I said paraphrase the scene where Leonardo DiCaprio's character dies in the water, right? You say, oh, well, she pushes him off and she doesn't save him. Okay. So a paraphrase is just a shorter chunk versus a summary, which is a longer chunk, okay? So a summary and a paraphrase, these are also considered citations, okay, because they're not my original ideas. I'm talking about another author's work, so we have to give those authors credit. A summary or a paraphrase must always be written in your own words, otherwise it's considered plagiarism, okay? So even if you're summarizing somebody else's work, you have to use your own words. Let's summarize something. Plato's Euthydemus is a satirical examination of the slippery nature of language and how it is used to manipulate people. In the dialogue, Socrates seeks to learn a new form of knowledge called heuristic, being taught by two brothers, Euthydemus and Dionysodorus. The brothers' idea is that since words can have a multiplicity of meanings, they can argue any point against any one. See, that's a broad summary. Okay? I've summarized that. Okay? Now, in the next instance, here comes a bit of paraphrase. Okay? An example is that, because this is actually a more specific part, okay, more specific part of the text. An example is that if Socrates is a father and a dog can be a father, then Socrates is a dog or has fathered dogs, or a dog has fathered Socrates. Okay. Trust me, if you read this, it's actually really funny. These two brothers are really stupid, and they think they're really clever, and they do this with Socrates. And you could almost sense in Socrates's, if you go read it, like he's like staring at them like, what are you doing? And then all the people start clapping like, oh, you got Socrates, you made him look really stupid. And then it's really funny. So anyway, Plato intended for his dialogue to reveal the stark difference between Socrates' search for truth and the essential stupidity yet broad appeal of common rhetorical debating styles like the two brothers. Okay, that goes back into summary. So I just want to show you how these kind of work. Okay, that's a broad summary. Now, in the above passage, I made a summary as well as a broad paraphrase. Okay, I summarized broadly Plato's dialogue and paraphrased one of the ridiculous arguments that the brothers make against Socrates. Some of their other arguments are even more stupid. A summary seeks to convey the overall message of a larger work or idea, whereas a paraphrase is smaller in scope. Now, what if you really want to go read Euthydemus now? You just think, oh boy, I can't wait to go read this. Where do we look to find the citation? Down at the bottom of at the back of the essay. Okay, so we go back here. We see Plato. Okay, this is a different work. Different work. Okay, so notice here, apology comes before Euthydemus. Okay, because we don't use the when we're listing things alphabetically. We use the first real word, big word, non-definite or indefinite article. So A comes before E. Plato, O comes before P. Okay, so everything is alphabetical, even when you're listing things by the same author. So we go here, Euthydemus, trans, Ben Jowett, classics.mit, web, and then the access date. This format tells me, the reader, okay, same author, Euthydemus, here's the translator. I can find it on this website, classics.mit, and so it's a web source. And this is the date, this is called the access date. That's the day you looked it up. Okay? That's the day you looked it up. That's important because, as you know, sometimes websites go out of existence. Okay? So if I'm reading a paper and somebody cites a website from 1997, like 2 or 3 years after the internet was invented or developed, it's probably not going to be there anymore. There's a high certainty that this source will no longer exist. So this lets us know, okay, that the sources are probably locatable. All right, going back. Now, why are there two different listings for Plato? Why didn't I just use another essay from the collected works? Well, why would I'll answer that. Maybe I thought one translation was better than the other. Some translations of Plato are really good. Okay, the version of the Republic that I listed for you, that I put up for you, that's the best translation of Plato out there. Okay, I've read translations of Plato where the translator did a really bad job and it's almost illegible. It's so hard to get through. Alan Bloom was a really good translator, and I think he did a fantastic job. Or maybe I wanted to make my works cited list look diversified. Okay, I wanted to add a couple more citations there. That's a good thing. So there's a lot of little tricks you can do. In any case, I gave as much information for the web citation as I could find on the website. There's very little there. And as much information as was necessary for the reader to locate the exact source I used. Okay? If I had left out classics.mit, then the reader may have found another version. Okay? The citation is about accountability of the author, of you. Not the author you're citing, but accountability of you. Okay, as far as the authority of the citation, one can't do a lot better than a cite from MIT. Now, what do I mean by authority? Okay, MIT is a very famous university. Okay, it's not as famous as UB, I know, but someday they'll rise to the occasion. Now, if you go and cite somebody's blog, okay, let's say that you want to quote Euthydemus, and you find somebody who put the entire text up on their blog. Think about authority of your sources. If I look at your works cited list, and it just says Wikipedia, blog, okay? A blog can't be used in an academic paper. Even if that person has a PhD in translating Plato. Because a blog is not edited. A blog is just somebody's thoughts. Very often in blogs, people will change text. Human beings are really weird, right? So they might go in and, I don't like this part of Plato, I could write that in Plato, and they might change something. I've actually seen this happen quite a bit. So it's just like Wikipedia, because it's open source, or at least not edited, it doesn't have the same validity. Okay, so you do have to think about the authority of the sources you're using. Okay. Now, let's get to the point of common knowledge. What is common knowledge? Now, this is what I mean. It's actually very subjective. It is kind of relative. Okay. Plato was Greek or Athenian. Is that common knowledge? It should be, right? Even if you've never heard of Plato before, okay? Never heard of him before. That is something that relatively people ought to know. He's a pretty famous dude. Plato, was the student of Socrates and the teacher of Aristotle. Common knowledge? Well, it should be. That's common knowledge. You wouldn't have to cite that. Okay? The easiest way to remember this is just think of SPA. Okay? Socrates, Plato, Aristotle. Go to the SPA. It should be common knowledge. His name, Plato's name, was only a nickname, meaning broad. His real name was Aristocles. Common knowledge? Not at all. Very few people would actually know that. So Plato, from the word Platon, means broad. They think it was because he was a really big guy. Like he was a really just big dude, okay? So they called him basically big guy. Now, that's not common knowledge, but usually biographical information does not need to be cited, okay? Usually we don't cite that information. Okay, let's take the case of Nikola Tesla. He was born in 1856 and died, oops. This is one of those typos that I was talking about. He was born in 1856 in the Austrian Empire and died in America in 1943. Now, maybe you didn't know this, but once again, it's not necessary to cite almanac-like sources or information. It's not necessary to cite biographical information. Okay, so according to a biography, Prodigal Genius by John O'Neill, Tesla had a lifelong feud with Thomas Edison, leading the much more powerful and wealthy Edison to discredit Tesla, causing a lot of financial and funding issues for the young inventor. Edison, in fact, stole many of Tesla's ideas or actively sought their suppression, going so far once as to electrocute an elephant using Tesla's alternating current electricity to prove that it was unsafe. If you didn't know this, Thomas Edison was a really horrible person. Tesla was responsible for directly or indirectly inventing technology that led to the radio, radar and sonar, X-ray machines, hydroelectronics, patents leading to the transistor and telephone to allow like computers and TVs and stuff. The remote control, neon lighting, he didn't directly invent that, but one of his technologies allowed for it. The alternating current induction motor, like a coffee grinder or similar appliance, wireless communication, and he also artificially created ball lightning in his laboratory and apocryphally discovered the resonant frequency of the Earth, among many other inventions, patents, and breakthroughs. Oops, typo. When you talk about our planet, the Earth, capital E. When you talk about our sun, capital S. When you talk about our moon, capital M. Okay? When you talk about the moons of Jupiter, small m. Okay? So, anyway. At one point, Tesla was working on wireless electric transference. He lit up a field of light bulbs wirelessly once. The story about the resonant frequency of the Earth is kind of interesting. So you know about resonant frequency. So for example, if you take a guitar string, right, and you pluck that guitar string, its frequency will make another guitar string, if they're in the same wavelength, vibrate. If you've ever heard of somebody cracking crystal, right, if you take a crystal glass, right, that has a resonant frequency, and you know, if somebody sings a really loud, high note, it can actually crack the glass. All of your skulls actually have a resonant frequency that if I could figure out a machine that would interact with it, I could blow up your head. Okay, don't worry, that's impossible. But this is actually kind of a funny story because he evidently figured out the resonant frequency of the Earth and turned his little machine on, and it actually caused a minor earthquake. Apocryphally, it's a kind of, we're not sure if it's true or not, but evidently the fire department knew that it was him, and they ran in, they chopped down his door to see what he was doing, and he was breaking the machine before the building collapsed. Okay, so he's a really smart dude. Okay, a little weird though. Now, are all of those things common knowledge? No, not at all. But they are so specific. These are more specific than just biographical information. Okay? So we need a citation. We need to cite that information. But notice, please, that we already did. We're doing a broad summary of part of this book. I have listed the name of the book and the author. That's my citation. Now, if I want, I can go down to my works cited list and find the publication information of that specific text. Okay? So this is how this works. That's how it works. That's a summary. Okay? Why are there no page numbers? Because I'm listing information that comes from the entire text, so page numbers wouldn't be possible. It would look really weird. Okay? It would look really weird if I said this. Blah, blah, blah. You know, if I put pages 1 through 350, that looked really strange in a summary. Okay? So when you're summarizing, you don't need to use page numbers. You just need to give author and text. Okay, well, let's look at a paraphrase. Tesla's childhood was marked by an extreme curiosity with technology and nature, but he was aloof as well and didn't make friends very easily. In addition, his father was a stern man and often beat the boy, who then sought further seclusion in various hideouts in the countryside until finally leaving to attend college. Now notice here, once again, I'm in a new paragraph. Okay, so I need to list the author, and this is a very specific chunk of this text. Okay, pages 12 to 17. So I paraphrased that section of the book. Okay. Later in life, Tesla was a total recluse and actually had a pigeon with which he talked often, claiming that they were in love. 277. So notice here, okay, I've looked at specific parts of the text, marking down exactly where they came from. Okay. I didn't need to list the author's full name or the text since I've already done that earlier in the example. So here, I've done a parenthetical citation. I've stuck O'Neill's name into parentheses at the end of the citation to let the reader know where it's coming from. Okay? Simple. I've been given 2 page numbers because they're from specific parts of the text. Yes, poor Nikola Tesla lost his mind, just to put it bluntly. And so this pigeon, he would stare at it. He would stare at this pigeon, and then he would tell. He claimed that the pigeon communicated with him through lights that came out of its eyeballs. He went crazy. But, super genius. Okay. Now, like I said, you only need to mention the author's name and full name and work the first time you cite it, and thereafter only when necessary for basic clarity or common sense, okay? I listed it here because we're in a new paragraph, and I'm trying to espouse clarity. So those are the 3 basic forms of citation that you're going to encounter, okay? Direct quotes, paraphrase, and summaries, okay? So every time you do that, you always have to give author's name. So here we have O'Neill, John, Prodigal Genius, published by Adventures Unlimited in New York, 2008 print. So here is the rules. Alphabetical order. Always alphabetical order according to the author's names. Now, what if you have an anonymous source or an anonymous book? Okay? It would look like this. So there's a book, maybe you'll read it someday, I don't know. It's a book, it's an early English poem called Beowulf. We don't know who the author was. Okay? So in that sense, because I don't know the author, right, I would just list it by the title. So you notice because it goes author, title of book, etc. So that would then be B comes before O. Okay? So that's how that would work. Alphabetical order. Listed by author's family name or most known name. Nobody knows Plato's real name was Aristocles. That would be very strange to list it by Aristocles. Just list it by their most known name. Okay? So if you're citing a song from Prince, okay, list him in the works cited as Prince. Okay? I don't know his real name, but don't list him by his real name. The second line of the first Plato citation is indented to avoid confusion. Now this is kind of important. Okay. Notice this. If you have a citation that goes on to 2 lines, okay, what you have to do is format this, and you go to that second line, you hit enter, and then tab, okay, or indent. So you see how this kind of keeps it clean. So if I'm reading a works cited list and there's like 40 different citations here, and I can't very quickly point, okay, author. I mean, imagine how this would look. You see how it starts? It's very hard to quickly point out author. It's very hard to quickly identify if these aren't indented, okay? So that is what we're looking to do here. So just hit enter and then tab or indent, and that will format this more cleanly, okay? So this is a small thing, but it really does help clean up the works cited. Now, I don't need to list Plato in the second reference. I use 3 dashes instead. That's an MLA convention. APA does it differently. Ben Jowett translated the text. He didn't write it. Sometimes students list him as the author. Don't make this mistake. Okay? Do not confuse the author with the translator. Okay? Translation is hard, but it's way easier than actually writing your own books. Trust me, I've done a lot of it. The work cited follows directly after my text and does not require its own page. The work cited does not count for paper length. Okay? You don't have to make it its own page. You can follow just right directly after the text. The text, like I said, is written in 12-point font, double-spaced per MLA format guidelines. Here's where these little tabs live. There's your font choice, in case you don't know. Font choice, I like Garamond. There's the size, okay? And then this is where, right here, this little tab right here, line and paragraph spacing, you can drop down and format it, okay, like that. I mean, you can see, if I were to format this, you would start to see the paper grow, okay? So don't try to cheat there. Common knowledge, what is common knowledge? Typos. Things that any intelligent person ought to know. So the Earth, for example, is an oblong spheroid. Common knowledge? Yeah, okay. So some people believe the Earth is flat. I don't understand it, so the Earth is round. Plato was a very influential philosopher. Common knowledge? Yeah, okay. Classroom knowledge, basic precepts introduced during the course of the class, okay? So things we discuss in here, okay, broadly, you don't have to cite in your papers because in context, I know where you're getting that information, okay? So you don't have to cite things we've talked about in class. Something you knew without looking it up. If you already knew it, probably you don't need to cite it, okay? Aristotle was from Macedon, okay? Didn't need to look that up. Almanac information, okay? The ancient city of Ur is located 15 kilometers from Nasiriyah in Iraq. Common knowledge? No, but it's basically almanac or geographical information. We don't really need to cite that, okay? It's not required. Things repeatedly cited, like newspaper information. Okay? Kim Jong-un succeeded his father Kim Jong-il upon his father's death. Okay? So you might not know who Kim Jong-un is. You might not know who Kim Jong-il is. Kim Jong-un is the ruler of the dictator in North Korea. You might not know that. But that's still something that most people ought to know. Now here are some things that you must cite. This is the difference between common knowledge and non-common knowledge. Information and ideas from a source. Quotes, paraphrases, summaries. Must cite. Failure to cite, plagiarism. Your summary of others' original ideas. Okay? So you still have to give credit to other people when you use their ideas. Facts that aren't common knowledge. Okay? Now I put 2 in here because I want you to see that sometimes the line is really blurry. The line is really blurry. So this first one, Kant's categorical imperative is a logically rigorous ethical maxim that cannot properly exist in the world. Okay? So I would have to cite that. I would have to cite that because that's something really specific. So I'd have to go and figure out, okay, what this is. The second example is actually a little trickier. A common red coloring in food and cosmetics is the cochineal, a ground-up insect. Okay, so if you've used red makeup, very often it will contain this little insect. It's called a cochineal, and they grind them up and they use it as a red food coloring. It's also in food. Now, is that common knowledge? No, but I want you to see that. Should I cite that? Should I not? You see, sometimes you're going to be in doubt. You're going to say, well, I don't know if I need to cite this. If you are in doubt, cite it. Okay? If you have a question, like, oh, should I cite this? Cite it. It's better to oversight than undercite. Okay? Now, if you fail to cite something like this in your paper, I will circle it because I'll just say this is not common knowledge. Okay? You've got to cite this. What I'm talking about with plagiarism is when you copy and paste from other websites and just drop it into your paper as if it's your own. That's what will get you an F on that assignment. If you make a mistake in this, I'm here to help and correct you. Okay? Because it does get confusing. Trust me. I've been there. So if you didn't cite something that needs citations like this, I'll let you know. But if you're copying and pasting, okay, I consider that an accident. If you're copying and pasting stuff, that's intentional plagiarism. I will fail you, and I will catch you. Okay, I will catch you. P.S. The red from these insects is totally harmless. Okay, So that is, you can go back in and read that if you get bored, but that's a kind of meta citation explanation of how they look and how they work and how they function in the text of the essay.
Okay, right, so there's a format, well, a site that you could go to get APA format for
Mhm.
sites, right? So if you use a copy of the APA citation and put it in stuff, would it be plagiarism?
If you were to copy the,
The citation offline and put it in a works cited.
no, I will show you this, that's a good question. Like I said, this can all get a little weird, okay? This can all get a little confusing at times. If you go to the web page here, there's a very exciting MLA APA video. I did not do it, okay? But you can go there. It's a 10-minute video on how they both work. But here, this is your new best friend as far as the format guides go. This is this is a link to Owl Purdue. Okay. Ooh, look at that, a cool link. So you can go here, and this will outline every single format type for every single citation type in MLA and APA, if the internet works. Does anybody have $200,000 to fix the Wi-Fi on campus? Okay. This is a website hosted by Purdue University in Indiana. It's called the OWL, or the Online Writing Lab. This is super useful, okay? Because any questions you might have about MLA, APA, or Chicago or Turabian is another citation style. We are not doing Chicago, don't worry. And I only want you for this class to learn either MLA or APA. You don't have to learn both. If you can use one, you can use any of them. And I am not going to make you memorize these citation formats. Just know where to look and know how to use them. Do not invent your own citation styles. Okay? When I was a freshman, this didn't exist. When I was a freshman in college, the internet was brand new. Okay? I'm a little old. So we didn't have this, we didn't have access to, how do I cite things? Google did not exist. I wish I'd invested in Google back then. So, here's MLA and here's APA. So we looked at MLA, let's look at APA for a moment. Okay. So what you can do is go right here, APA Formatting and Style Guide. Now you can see it's going to, a bunch of things are going to jump up. The basics, how to cite in text. Footnotes and endnotes, do not use them for this class. They require a slightly different citation style. I don't recommend using footnotes and endnotes. We won't need them, okay? It's actually a much more complicated topic. Reference list, basic rules. I am not, like I said, I'm not going to get too persnickety about these things because there are a lot of these rules and conventions. Like APA says, you have to have a title page. It has to have this information on it. It has to have the date in a header. Well, no, I just care about your writing and citations. That's all I care about. Okay, so you don't have to follow this to the letter. What I want to make sure is that you're citing things and that you're not plagiarizing even accidentally. Okay. Author and authors. Here's how APA looks. Okay, this is the basic format. It goes author. Now in APA, what they do, they give the family name and then they just give the initials. Okay, so like if you're citing Plato in APA, you still have to write out his full name. It's not just going to be P. Okay, common sense. Common sense. Did you have a question? Okay. So, Burns learned, TJ, now notice they put the date right after the author. In MLA, they put the date at the end. Why is this? Now, like I said, in APA, this tends to be the social sciences and the natural science, the hard science. This is to very quickly for a reader to assess the time or the publication dates of your research. Because if you're in the sciences, you have to keep up to date. Okay? If I'm writing a paper on neuroscience and I cite something from 1990, we've learned a lot about the brain, okay, in the last 30 years, or 20 years. Or wait, 2020? Man. 1990 is 30 years ago? Okay. So that means that we have to keep our research more or less up to date. In the humanities, we really don't care so much about publication dates because we read books that are sometimes thousands of years old. Okay? So the date is not nearly as important. So it's a small change, but it's very important. Here, notice that with the title in APA, only the first letter is capitalized, and then all of the other words are lowercase. That's the title of this article. Okay? Friendship, quality, and social development. Here we have current directions in psychological science. That is clearly the reference book that this article is found in. Okay, so that gets italicized in both MLA and APA. 11, that is probably the edition. Okay, so volume 11, edition 11, pages 7 through 10. Okay, so it's a slightly different format. Okay, but all I'm looking for in your papers is that you get it mostly correct. Okay, mostly correct. Please, dear gods, do not just give me a list of HTML URLs. Okay? Some people, for their works cited, they just copied and pasted the URL from the page they were on and then just stuck that in their works cited. I stabbed holes in the paper, cried, wept, screamed it. No. So this is what I mean, that once you get the hang of it, this is actually the easiest part of your paper, is filling out the reference list or works cited. Because these don't change. These are just templates, okay, that you can follow. More than 7 authors, unknown author, 2 or more works by the same author. In this, like with Plato, this would look like this. It would depend on which one was published first. Okay, so you always listed by the earliest reference first, and notice you don't use 3 dashes. If you make that mistake in APA and you use 3 dashes, I don't care. That is not a big issue. The big issues are not putting authors' names in there, not citing things, okay, leaving those kinds of things out. So you can notice here, there's all kinds of different types of citations. Okay, the one thing that I recommend doing, okay, just think about it like this. Think about using Google creatively as a tool as it's supposed to be used, not to find cat videos or whatever people use it for. How do I cite a book with 2 authors in APA style? That's going to start taking you, okay, to these web pages. Use this creatively, okay? Use this as a guide, okay? How do you cite a book with 2 authors? You're going to find all the information you need right through this, okay? So just use Google or go directly to the web page and then figure out what type of reference are you making, because each one of these is a little bit different. Each one of them is a little bit different. So if you have a book with 1 author, a book with 2 authors, if you have an online book, if you have a paper copy of the book, if you have a journal article, if you have all of these require a slightly different reference or citation, okay? So, MLA, same thing. Formatting and style guide. Don't use endnotes and footnotes. The major distinction you guys are going to have is between books and periodicals and online sources. Most of your references are going to be online sources. Okay? That's normal. Because the internet is everywhere, you can do research on your phones. You have no excuse not to do research anymore. When I was your age, we had to drive into the library, okay, go in there. They had one computer that you could look up books, then you had to go physically find all the books and articles. Okay? Nothing was online. Okay? You spent 8 hours in the library just doing research. So you can do all your research from home. You are so lucky, you have no idea. So that's where you go to answer these questions. Okay? How do I cite a web page? How do I cite this? How do I cite an advertisement? How do I cite? It's all right there. Okay. Now, where are we? The other thing that I want you to see is this. So when you're doing research for an academic paper, I do recommend you try this website. Okay? This is from Google, but it's a different application of Google. It's called Google Scholar. Now notice you're not doing law, you're doing articles. So don't use Google when you're trying to find resources for your papers. Okay? Use Google Scholar. Because what this does, it uses Google's algorithms, which are actually very powerful, but it will look through all the various databases and journals available. Okay? So, Plato, Francis Fukuyama just wrote an article the other day summarizing a book by Ezra Klein. He's a very famous scholar. So let's see if I can find something, okay, that cross-lists a modern author on democracy, Francis Fukuyama, with Plato's view on freedom. Now, it used to be that you had to enter in Boolean keywords, so like and or. Okay, Google will pretty much do that for you now, but sometimes adding these ands and ors, okay, these Boolean markers in between words, will sometimes help you to focus your research. So let's see if something comes up. Okay, apropos of Francis Fukuyama's premature post-Cold War declarations about the global achievement, blah, blah, blah. So, okay, there might be something in this one. Okay. There might be something. So it's going to, whatever keywords you enter in, it's going to highlight those for you. So as you're scanning through this, this, nothing pings. Okay. So, okay, freedom, Plato, but there's no Fukuyama. This one, we get, Plato, freedom, Fukuyama. Okay, maybe this one. Maybe this would be a good citation. Maybe I should go in and look at that. Now, some of these are going to be available to you as PDFs. That's good. Okay, that means it's free. Others, they're going to cross-reference you into let me find it for you. They're going to cross-reference you sometimes through things like databases like JSTOR. Okay, so JSTOR, for example, is a database, it's a digital library. Now, what happens in these databases is that journals, okay, will pay JSTOR to host their journal. It worked. I'm just telling things to shut up. So what they do, they pay JSTOR to host their journal, and then you use this database, okay? It didn't work. So then you can go and find articles that are of relevance, okay, to your whatever you're writing about. Now, I don't think that our university has access to JSTOR. What universities do is they then pay these databases for access. Okay, so usually your tuition fee gets you access to certain databases that the university has paid for. I think, well, we actually might have access to JSTOR. I think we have EBSCO. We don't have ProQuest. That's a good science journal. But anyway, for example, just to show you this. Let's say you find an article through Google Scholar that lists JSTOR. So let's do the same thing. Plato and freedom and Fukuyama. Now see here, it doesn't list all that much. This is what I mean that Google Scholar will get you a lot more hits. Okay, it has a way better algorithm because they're using the patterns that they've developed from the search engine Google. This doesn't pick up anything. Okay, this doesn't ping anything. So this is what I mean. Use Google Scholar when you're doing research. Okay, you'll get a lot more hits. It'll probably generate a lot more resources. Now, so there's Al Purdue, there's a MLA, APA video, there's a Reddit commentary. Now you have an assignment due next week. Okay, it's a very short assignment. What I want you to do, MLA, APA assignment, just click on that, it'll download this outline. So, let me make that a little bigger. Okay, zoom tight if somebody sneezes. We're now going to be working in one of the two styles for the remainder of the course. As such, you need to practice how to create a works cited reference list. Below is a sample of what these R2 look like. Now, I just copied and pasted part of my, this is first PhD. So this is the first citations from my first dissertation, okay? So you notice it's all alphabetical order, okay? This is an older version of MLA because they changed it after I finished mine, but you kind of get the sense. This is what I want your works cited to look like. Now, what is going to populate your works cited list for this assignment? So please choose either MLA or APA depending on your major, okay? Like I said, the humanities uses MLA, the sciences use APA. If you can use one, you can use any of them. Okay? Like when I publish articles, very often, I just use Chicago all the time. Okay? Chicago is a very easy one to learn. I send in my articles to journals, they write back, and they say, can you please switch that to APA? I say, oh God, okay, fine. Now, I don't memorize these formats. I am not going to make you memorize these formats. I'm not going to make you do something that I am unwilling to do. Okay? But if you know where to look, you know how to find this stuff, it'll make it so much easier, okay? Because then you don't have to memorize this stuff. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to cite the following sources, all of which are available through the internet. I want you to cite the online book Albert Camus' Myth of Sisyphus. Albert Camus is a French author we are going to read after midterms. The Myth of Sisyphus is a famous book by him, which we will be reading. Okay? I want you to cite the online book, Plato's Republic. Now, when I say cite, all I mean is this. I don't want to quote. No, don't quote. You're just making a works cited list just like this. Okay? It's going to be Camus, Plato. Okay? I don't need any quotes from them yet. All we're doing is making the works cited list. Some students got really confused about this. Okay? So I'm just trying to dispel confusions. 2 articles, 2 journal articles from Google Scholar. They can be about anything, just cite something. I don't care what. Okay? Well, what should I cite? Anything. Anything. Shoes. Okay. Oh, there's one. There's a harvesting shoes. Oh, safety shoes. That sounds fascinating. I can't wait to not read that. Okay? It doesn't matter. I don't care what you're citing. Just notice here. Okay? There's a title. There's our authors. If we click on this, actually that's a patent. Can't cite. You can cite a patent if you want. Okay? Oh, where'd our shoes go? So we don't want a patent. Now it takes you here. Eventually? Probably? Maybe? Okay. So here, just to show you this, okay, here we have the authors, here's the title of the article, here's one of the publishers, okay, IEEE, published in Digestive Papers, Second International Symposium on Wearable Computers, okay. Here's the date of the conference. Now you notice you get all this information, okay, you get all this information. How are you going to find where you go to cite an online journal article? Google. Yes, go to Google, type in APA. Yes, APA, Al Purdue Online Journal Citation. That'll take you to the website, and then you just go and you find that format here.
You said this is Monday, right?
I don't remember exactly when it's due. It's on Moodle. So the Moodle will have the due date, whenever that is. It might be Monday. Is it the 7th? Okay, so it's not due for like a week and a half. If you can't do this in a week and a half, you're in trouble. Okay? You're in a lot of trouble. So I think this would be due next Wednesday. Okay, you are going to look for electronic sources. That's where you're going to find this. Load. Okay, web page or piece of online content. Article from an online periodical. Online scholarly journal article. Aha. How do I cite that? Okay, this will show you. Author, multiple authors, date of publication, title of article, title of journal, volume number, issue number if available, page range, and then the DOI. The DOI is this. Okay? That's the DOI. They assign these digital imprint numbers to certain journal articles. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. Now notice this. If it doesn't have a DOI, if your journal article you picked doesn't have one, then you can't list that information. So just leave it off. Okay? Very easy. So you only provide the information that you have available to you. Common sense. Okay? Now going back to the screen is blocking me out. Okay, back to, where is that? I can't access the screen now. Great. One moment.